My mom wanted me to pay rent, so I moved out story. I'm 25 years old and have been paying $60 a week rent for a few years. I recently started a new temp job that pays pretty decent, and they decided to keep me with the company last week. This morning, my mom texted me to say, rent starts up again, $150 a week. I just told her I would move out. I already pay for my own meals. I only have my small bedroom to call my own in their house. I can rent a studio apartment 3 or 4 times the size of my room for a few hundred more, or could rent a room with friends for less than my mom is trying to charge me. It would be one thing if they cooked and cleaned for me every day, and I was raking up their bills, but I do my own thing and pay my own bills. I never really even cross paths with my parents, besides when I'm getting off work. My mom's definitely pissed that I said that. I can tell. But I'm also upset that the person who birthed me is trying to get me to pay what I would pay a landlord for rent just to sleep in her house. Even $100 a week, I would have been more inclined to be okay with, but $600 a month just to be able to sleep at my parents' house seems a little high. If I am paying $600 a month, I think I would deserve my own spaces around the house also, as I would with a landlord. It seems having a landlord would be a better deal for me in this case. I'm not wrong in this, am I? Response 1. But I'm also upset that the person who birthed me is trying to get me to pay what I would pay a landlord for rent just to sleep in her house. You know, parents have bills and utilities to pay also. You're only entitled to free room and board until you're a legal adult. If I am paying $600 a month, I think I would deserve my own spaces around the house also, as I would with a landlord. Lol. If you can swing it for $600, go for it. Where I come from, $600 a month would get you a shared bedroom, a half bath, and access to a garden hose with a 3-minute shutoff timer to shower with. Despite coming off a little naive, you're definitely not the a-hole. I'm not sure why she would be angry unless she was genuinely depending on the income she got from you to pay bills. If she was only depending on it for luxuries and fun money, then she's extra a-hole-ish. Reply 1. Yeah, if it were a matter of making ends meet, I wouldn't have any issue. My dad has a credit card in my name that he can use whenever he needs to catch up on something and doesn't have the money. Dad is the breadwinner in our house. My mom pays for vacations and a couple of utilities, but my dad pays for the mortgage, groceries, and most of the bills. The funny part is, he doesn't want rent from me. It's my mom who wants it. It's part of why I am especially not keen on the idea. If they needed the money, it wouldn't even be a question. They just got back from a 2-week cruise and are planning another one, so definitely not even close to struggling. Yeah, don't get me wrong, the cheapest studio near me is closer to $900 and not the best area, but still would have more privacy and independence for sure. Sorry if I missed a couple of points. I'm trying to reply to as many comments asking for context as I can. Reply 2. Okay, now leaning toward you're the a-hole, because now I'm hearing juvenile complaining about your parents going on vacation, compounded with your juvenile comments about it's not as if they're cooking and cleaning for me, along with what has to be an unrealistic view of the rental market. You cannot rent an apartment for $600 a month. You imply that it would only be worth $600 to live at your parents' house if they were cooking and cleaning for you. Adults do not have someone else cook and clean for them, except for super rich people who pay thousands of dollars a month for housekeepers and personal chefs. Having someone cook and clean for you is what happens when you're a child. I also don't believe that you've been paying rent, as you claim, since your mom's message began with rent is starting back up. It sounds to me instead like you were living rent-free while you were a temp. But now that you've been converted to a permanent employee, your parents are charging you, a 25-year-old with a job that you say pays well, a far below market rate in rent to live at their house. I'm totally against the parents who kick their kids out when they turn 18 and stuff. That is terrible, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. Reply 3. Yeah, this whole post is very entitled, like he expects that his parents will let him live there rent-free for the rest of his life, just because his mother gave birth to him? Also, the only thing he's said about his mother being angry is, my mom's definitely pissed that I said that. I can tell. How can you tell? Has she said anything about being angry? And if she has, why didn't you include it in the post? Is it possible she's angry because he says things like, but I'm also upset the person who birthed me is trying to get me to pay what I would pay a landlord for rent just to sleep in her house? As you say, kicking kids out when they're 18 is very wrong, but this is an adult in his mid-20s who has been earning decent money for a while as a temp and is now earning decent money in an ongoing role. If rent is so ridiculously cheap in his area that he can get a room in a decent share house for $600 a month, and that includes utilities and other bills, why hasn't he moved out earlier? That sounds like a great deal. Is it perhaps that even if he cooks his own meals, he doesn't have to do the bulk of the household labor because he actually doesn't mention that he does 1/3 of the household cleaning in his post? Who cleans the bathrooms? Who vacuums and mops? Who does the cleaning things that aren't like washing the dishes you've made? My parents always said if we were working full-time, we would pay the board because they didn't want us to get used to spending all of our money and never be able to support ourselves. The board was $100 a week, but this was nearly 2 decades ago. This seemed really reasonable to me. It wasn't that they needed the money, they just didn't want us to become bums. Reply 4. This is a good point. If rent is so cheap, why not just move out now? I'm willing to bet mom and/or dad do more for him than he lets on. Reply 5. 100%. When he talks about how he's not as bad as people think he is, all he talks about is paying for some small things. He mentions that they don't cook or clean for him, but doesn't mention that he does an appropriate amount of cleaning around the house. I'm not talking about doing his own dishes after he cooks for himself, which everybody should be able to manage, but the parts of cleaning that teenagers often ignore, like cleaning the bathrooms and vacuuming and general cleaning around the house. For the years that he wasn't working and was living in their house rent-free, but I would expect him to do the vast majority of the household cleaning. But if he had done that, I would think he would mention it. Even if he pays this tiny amount of rent his mother is asking from him, he should still be doing some of this cleaning. Reply 6. I find it extremely funny that the Western culture only houses their children till they're legally obligated to, takes care of them only till they're legally obligated to, and then throws them away to the elements when said legal obligation ends. The concept of doing something out of genuine love after the kid turns 18 seems pretty alien here. Your first part missed the point entirely. Charging rent from a kid for costs is reasonable, but in this case, the amount isn't reasonable, and they're trying to profit off the OP, which isn't really a shining sign of character. If the parents are demanding that much rent, they don't get the privilege of living as parents anymore and need to change the power dynamic to that of roommates. In your second part, I find it interesting that you pull the no obligation card for the parents. That card is nowhere applied to the OP. They really aren't obligated to subsidize their parents' lifestyle if the parents aren't obligated to love them and not nickel and dime them. Interestingly enough, informing of a drastic rent increase like that would be illegal for actual landlords. In what universe is it fine to treat your actual kid worse than a normal tenant? If they want to charge a landlord-like rent, they get a landlord-like response, and the OP wants to move out like any other tenant would after they're priced out of the property. This culture sounds so depressingly transactional. I can't even. In most other civilized regions of the world, the parents take care of their kids and set them up for the best starts in life they possibly can, and the children take care of said parents in their old age to reciprocate. The concept of making your kid into your tenant is alien. Reply 7. Thank you. This is my feeling exactly. These types of posts are insane to me as the son of an Italian mother and a US-born father. I make $70K a year, sometimes upwards of $90K, and have even passed into the 6 digits before, and I live rent-free with my parents. The thought of my parents charging me rent is insane to them. I'm 25. I could easily support myself, but they want me here. They both, especially my mother, believe that you should never charge your children for living with you, no matter your age, unless you're bringing a spouse and kids with you. Then it might be reasonable. They want me to live with them until they die, and while I would prefer my own place, I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. I get to stay close to my siblings this way too. They all also live at home, except for one. Americans often view their children as liabilities and things they are entitled to, as opposed to actual people that they chose to bring onto Earth. If they were simply asking him to pay his portion of the bills down to an exact amount, I might understand it, but at the same time, this is still repulsively transactional. Where's the love? Response 2. Not the a-hole. Your mom has no right to be mad at you for moving out. However, quit the person who birthed me nonsense. $600 is too much, but $400 is fine for mothers? Who came up with that arbitrary line? Reply 1. You expect someone you love to give a crap about you more than a legally obligated business transaction. In most civilized places, children love their parents, and parents don't see their kids as legal obligations. Reply 2. Not everyone shares those qualities. After the parents died, my sister and I found that they'd been using us both as cash cows and blaming it on the both of us. They kept telling my sister that I was taking money from them so she would give them even more, and turned around and said that she would not give them any so they could get a hold of more of my disability benefits. Just because you're a parent, it doesn't mean you automatically become a saint. Reply 3. I'd never charge my kids even close to what it would cost for them to rent a whole apartment just for the room they grew up in. That's just crappy. I understand instilling a sense of responsibility, but at a certain point, you're just taking advantage of someone you're supposed to help when things are tough. Reply 4. My plan is to charge my kids a low amount, $200, $300 a month, once they're not in full-time education, but to put it all aside and give it back to them when they choose to move out to help with the initial costs. Hopefully, it instills responsibility and shows them how effective even a moderate amount of saving can be. They can do whatever they like with the money, but I'd privately hope they keep it as savings and continue adding to it. It's a lesson that took me way too long to learn, and I hope they can avoid the same. Response 3. No a-holes here. Rent starts up again. Sounds like she was giving you a free ride for a bit and then gave you a week to celebrate the job before informing you it was time to start adulting again. She seems like a great mom. You have no obligation to live with your parents. Her being upset may just be because you're leaving, and that can be hard on parents. Reply 1. Agree. This is a great mom. It is so easy to get used to using your full income as disposable when you have no financial responsibilities, and very difficult to reverse the habits later. She is training him for the real world. Reply 2. And now I've been reminded of the time I moved to my hometown for a job, 25-ish, and lived at home briefly. My parents didn't charge me rent. After less than 6 months at my new job, I decided to get my own place, and Mom was livid. Still to this day, I do not understand why, other than she wouldn't be able to influence my life on a daily basis. Not the a-hole. Response 4. No a-holes here. But assuming you do not have to pay anything aside from the basics, you are looking at about $1,350 before you do things like make a car payment, streaming services, pay for dates, buy clothes business, go to the doctor, get an oil change, replace a flat tire, play any online video games, want to eat out / DoorDash, Uber Eats, go to a concert, do anything other than just survive. It is insanely expensive to be out in the wild right now. Groceries at $300 a month. Are you living on the barest of bare foods? It can be done. I did it for a couple of years, but it gets hard to look forward to always eating the toughest meat, the same bland cereals, ramen, or whatever your food of choice ends up being. You will be able to stomach it for a few months, but then you are going to want something besides a sandwich and chips. You can absolutely cut some costs too. You can give up your smartphone for a flip phone and save $80 a month. Or you can get the slowest internet speeds and save another $50. You can wear your rotation of work clothes, home clothes, 3 to 4 times before you wash them, but they will wear out faster if you do that. You can get rid of your car and use public transportation, which is still going to cost you time and money, but not as much as a car payment or car insurance. Just be prepared for living on your own. Anyone who has ever ventured out always thought they could do it on their own, got hit in the face with reality, had to make some hard decisions, and eventually adjusted and are doing just fine. You will too. Just don't go into it thinking you are not going to have to sacrifice some of the things you are used to. Response 5. Jokes are on you. They want you to move out. Reply 1. This is it right here. When parents post asking how to get their adult kids out of the house and to spread their wings, the winning advice is always making it less comfortable for them to stay. Reply 2. That was my thought. I couldn't wait till my youngest was out. We went from a 3,000 SFR home to a 1,500. What a sense of freedom. Love them both, but we really wanted our space. Both kids moved out around 18. They had decent jobs, girlfriends and boyfriends, and they lived in some dumps, but what a sense of accomplishment. We always helped financially in emergencies, but there have been very few. My 20-year-old moved with $2,000 to LA from the East Coast to pursue his acting career. How he's done it is beyond me, but he has. I know it's tougher out there today, but parents are not doing their kids any favors by continuing to treat them like children once they are old enough to do for themselves. Reply 3. You are a good parent, treating your kids as responsible adults and still being someone they can come to. My mom, 64, brother 27, and I, 24, still live together. However, we all work full-time jobs and pay our part in rent and bills. We figure we can help each other out instead of struggling alone. Everybody has different situations. I don't know the total amount that Op's parents pay on rent to decide AITA or WATA on that part. I think in Op's situation, if their rent is over $2,000, I don't see why he can't pay $600 a month if he makes enough to contribute. I wish my part was only $600 with all bills included. Nowadays it is, not impossible, but extremely hard to make a living when you are alone. But Op is AITA for making either the choice in moving or not. Response 6. No a-holes here. You have the right to decide if you want to live in that space with your parents, pay more to live on your own, or pay less to live with, potentially more than 2 friends. You can absolutely choose to move out. However, your parents definitely have the right to determine the amount of rent. It doesn't matter if she is your mother. Not that this is relevant, but they too are humans with costs and retirement to think about, and you are now an adult who doesn't need to be supported. Reply 1. I'm sure OP is leaving out all kinds of details and not being totally honest about his living arrangements. I'm sure there are plenty of dinners and breakfasts, etc., that he partakes in free food. It also sounds like he thinks because he spends a lot of his time in his room, he shouldn't help clean the home or mow the yard or whatever else every adult homeowner has to do to maintain a nice home. Living with a non-helpful adult is frustrating. I can imagine OP's mom has to ask him to do anything helpful, and he still lives like a teenager, so she asks for money to ease their finances on food and utilities. Response 7. How did you phrase it? Because if you were like, I appreciate having lived with you, but I think it's the right time for me to get my own place. She's TA, but if you took it really personally and went off on her, I get why she would be pissed. But yeah, you should move out. Reply 1. Yeah, I lean more towards the latter. I'm guessing he made it a spiteful, you want to charge me more for rent, take that kind of a thing, and not a, hey mom, I think I'm gonna get my own place now that I'm on my own 2 feet. Reply 2. If so, he hurt her unnecessarily. I don't blame him. Blame isn't useful, and seeing shadows and reactions is difficult even for much older people, but the solution is just to move out and come to terms with everything, and make up or not. Response 8. Not the a-hole. You can do whatever you want. I'd be curious to know if pay my own bills includes things like natural gas, electricity, internet, etc., or just things like gas and your phone. $600 for an apartment on your own seems highly unlikely, but maybe where you live, it's doable. You'd be looking to add a few hundred for utilities on top of that. At the end of the day, just don't put yourself in a financial bind out of stubbornness. It's worth dealing with your folks if it sets you up for a better, sustainable future. Best of luck. Reply 1. I don't pay utilities on the house, so no to the gas. I pay for my phone. I pay for half of the Wi-Fi. All my family's phones are on my plan, and I pay for my mom's and my own Paramount, Apple Music, and iCloud Plus. I pay for my mom's iPad. Also, pretty much every bill I incur monthly. Credit cards, debts, quarterly taxes for my business phone line, etc. Reply 2. So I live somewhere you usually don't pay heat in apartments. I recently moved into a single room at a house. The landlord wanted $100 for heat per month from the get-go. If you live somewhere heat is not typically included in the rental, you might shell out a lot. My place is $1,000, and I have been clearing $1,500 with all my bills, not counting food. My rent bloomed to $1,300 with the extras that are necessary. And then there's transportation and all the other things like cleaning supplies, toilet paper, trash bags, and recycling bags. Response 9. No a-holes here. You should move out. You need a life as an independent adult. Although you claim you're independent at home, it is just not the same thing as living on your own. However, your mom is not an a-hole for charging a 25-year-old rent, especially as it seems you got to pass on rent for an extended period of time because you couldn't afford it. Reply 1. Yes, he should move out. He needs to experience life outside his parents' home. I think the parents were pretty good to him. The OP is requesting a maid and cooking meals is crazy. Response 10. Maybe this is your mom's way of nudging you in that direction. You are 25. Go fly free. I moved out at 17 because my mom wanted me to start paying rent when I chose to leave school and work full-time. I found a much more convenient place at not much more than she was asking. By 25, I fully understood that she should have asked me for much more. I was costing her more with very little gratitude in return. I'm 40 now, and I think neither of you are assholes. Move out, apologize to your mother, and tell her you are grateful for everything she has done for you, and then learn how to show it. Good luck to you. Edited to add, she's asking you for less a month than I pay weekly on rent alone. Maybe ask her to explain how she decided on that number. You might be quite surprised to learn what her expenses are to house you. My mother was paying more in fuel a week to drive me than she asked me to contribute for rent. I didn't know that until years later. Reply 1. Read above, they answered a lot of your questions already. Also, I wouldn't compare the prices to your youth anymore. Response 11. Boy, are you going to be surprised when all the expenses of having your own place start gobbling up your money. The money mom is asking for is less, trust me. That being said, it's time to move out and be on your own. You definitely need your own space at your age. Reply 1, I doubt it. He's paying $600 SMO utilities included for a room in a shared unit. Currently, his utilities are covered, which aren't that expensive to split in a shared situation. Water, trash are generally covered, so electric Wi-Fi. That's literally the only expense he's not paying now. I feel like a 25-year-old has some basic understanding of what utilities are. OP's mom might be in for a surprise when her expenses go up, because OP has been supplementing her lifestyle. The father, the breadwinner, doesn't even want rent. Reply 2. Sounds like he hasn't actually been paying rent to his parents recently. He said he had paid that price, but his message from his mom said rent starts up again, so I don't think he'd even been paying the $60 a week. Reply 3. I don't pay utilities on the house, so no to the gas. I pay for my phone, I pay for half of the Wi-Fi, all my family's phones are on my plan, and I pay for my mom's and my own Paramount, Apple Music, and iCloud Plus. I pay for my mom's iPad. Also, pretty much every bill I incur monthly, credit cards, debts, quarterly taxes for my business phone line, etc. His father also has access to his credit card. Sounds like he's paying his fair share, even if he didn't directly pay rent. Reply 4. The only thing he actually paid extra for was his mom's iPad. Everything else was him having something he allowed others to use. He said the family phones are on his plan, but did not state he paid them all. If so, he pays the phone's iPad. All the extra words just make it seem like he's paying more for them. He's not. Even if you add those things up, it does not equal rent or fair share for a grown adult to pay their share of a shared housing situation. Access to a credit card means nothing. He is twisting everything to make it seem like he pays more than he does. Response 12. Not the a-hole. You're 25 and already basically living as if alone. Time to do it for real. Your room in your parents' house should be your safety net, a place to crash should your apartment burn down or some other such catastrophe. Once you've got your own place, go visit regularly. Bring fruit or other treats. I'm sure your relationship with them will improve. They'll be glad to see you. You'll probably get more free meals as a welcome visitor than you do right now. Response 13. Seriously, you make us go to your comments to find out that you stopped paying even the $60 after you quit your previous, and then require us to click your Imgur post to find out that it was in 2021. So, you last paid rent 3 years ago and have the audacity to complain that they are charging you a likely below market rental rate and not the token $60 that they did when you were 22. You're the a-hole, both for complaining and for hiding all of the relevant information. Reply 1. I wish this was higher up. OP's just pissed they have to contribute anything after getting away with it for years. But good luck to them moving out, finding somewhere cheaper, and with the option to just stop paying for 3 years. You're the a-hole. Reply 2. I knew from reading OP's post that quite a bit of context was missing, and a few slip-ups in the post tipped it off. Subtle, but they are there. Bumping this for more eyes, as this is the matter of the story. Gel OP, time to stop the mooching. Response 14. You're 25. Why didn't you move out before? Reply 1. Because I never felt a need to. Not everyone is obligated to move out at 18 if they are happy and welcome where they live. In a lot of cultures, it's tradition to live at home until you are married. Reply 2. Yeah, but other cultures also contribute to the household collectively. In some cultures, children end up paying the majority of the bills amongst themselves, and the parents contribute like you do. You're 25, you need to pay rent. But being 25, you also have the option to move out and pay rent elsewhere. I despise parents who stop being parents the minute their children turn 18, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. On another note, it doesn't matter if your father is the breadwinner. Your mother contributes to the household and marriage and is an equal partner. I'm almost 100% sure this was run by your dad and discussed prior to even telling you. That's what married people do. Response 15. When I lived at home, my parents showed me their expenses: mortgage, utilities, bills, insurance, food, drink, etc., etc. They showed me just how much more I was costing them by being there, and they asked me to pay towards it because they were financially feeling the strain of housing/feeding another human on their salaries, current COL. It's not fair for my parents to suffer financially because I'm 25 and living at home for a free ride. If you think it's unreasonable, then ask to see how much you're actually costing your parents. You're within your right to move out if you want to do that, but don't do it out of spite because you think they're trying to screw you over. Response 16. You're the a-hole, not for you, wanting to move out. But the fact that you have been leeching off your mom for so long and your attitude for her wanting you to contribute more. There are very few places where you can find a studio apartment that's not covered in black mold or a super ghetto area for under $1,100. That's not counting the hundreds of extra dollars a month when you add on utilities, internet insurance, and such. Heck, look at rooms for rent, but depending on the area, just renting a single room can be $600 to $1,500 a month. And that $240 you're paying a month would maybe cover the utilities you used and such, versus actually paying part of the household bills.